be covered. So I started this program just so that I could learn how to tell my own story. And I actually happened to cover Rebecca Kaplan's um, her candidacy for mayor like 2014 or I don't know, it was about 8 years ago.
That was right. That was right. 2014. That's when Libby won. Yeah.
Yeah, I was at her headquarters at Everton Jones, and so I was just excited, ambitious to learn and just to cover the story. And here we are today. And what I learned is that Sheng Thao was um, Rebecca Kaplan's chief of staff and ran and became city council. And so I actually was recruited to work with her. I heard my name from her chief of staff, someone that works on her team to do community engagement kind of work. I am a community person. I'm always in different public spaces, learning, uh, networking, supporting my folks, and so they actually contacted me. I had never seen a job description or didn't even hadn't even considered being an elected officials council aide. And they reached out to me and they were like, "Oh, would you be interested in this? It pays this. It pays $70,000 in comparison to what I was making. It was at least $10 or more thousand than what I was already making." And they kind of like you can do this job. I'm like, well, what does the job entail? Well, kind of what you already do now. In my former role, I worked at Oakland Promise. I was a family engagement specialist. I supported families of high school students to navigate the college access work for first generation families, and pretty successful at it. I was like one of the oldest African American staff member that had been there, from Oakland Promise to the merger and through a few CEOs, and that's a whole nother story. But
if you see me looking at it, I just put this on social media. Sorry, so
okay,
I got you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to hone in at, but that's how I guess Sheng Thao came to know about me and what I did and who I was from Renia Webb. Renia advocated. She's like, you could totally do this role. You could do this with your eyes closed. The community. You know what the community needs. Sheng Thao needs her. I guess her chief of staff was leaving, and that was the person that I was going to be replacing. So that person, she had interviewed me, and she was like, "You're perfect for this role," based on everything that I had told her that I had done and the research that she did on my background. She's like, "You sound like the perfect person for this role. Uh, I would hire you." And I said, "Well, will I have an opportunity to, overlap with you and you show me the ropes, because I don't really know what I'm getting myself into, but I'm up for the challenge." And because it was a step up for me and for my family and for my community, to be honest. Um, so I interviewed with the entire Sheng Thao staff, Brandon, Renia, um, Sheng Thao, and her campaign manager, Julie. I think it's Julie. Can't remember right now, but I interviewed with all of them. They offered me the job and asked me about my salary requirements. I told them. They offered me the job in that interview.
Wow.
So
Wow.
they told me my first meeting would be at Julie's house. At the time, no, none of these people I knew, but I'm like, okay, this is how it works when you're coming into City Hall. So my first meeting was going to be at Julie's house, and yeah, the saga began.
You said the saga began. What happened? Did it just go down so quickly, or what was the straw that broke the back?
I mean, I would need to have a list in front of me, but there's several things that I experienced from the beginning to the end. It just, I had no idea um, the level of toxicity that I was getting involved with. Um, I couldn't have known. I couldn't have known what I was getting involved with. It sounded great. She told me I needed to dress professionally. She told me basically, you're going to represent me when I'm not there, when I am places. If I tell someone I'm going to meet with them, you're going to meet with them. You're going to be the person doing all the follow up, which I think is pretty typical potentially for most elected officials and their staff. And so I was so anxious and ready to do the job. I went out and bought suits, that I really couldn't afford at the time, but we pieced things up together and definitely went out and changed my wardrobe and, did a lot to show up 100%, ready to do the job. And the job was just never, I never did one thing that they told me I was going to do. And from day one, I was offered the salary that I was offered after I had already given my 2-week notice, because I asked them, should I give my 2-week notice? Like, am I hired? They say yes. So I went ahead and did that. Well, I went to go do the paperwork, and they're like, oh, you need to be fully vaccinated. I was not vaccinated at the time. I did not want to be vaccinated, but I had already given up my job. And if I wanted this job, I was going to need to be vaccinated. So I did that in the courtyard of City Hall right there. I got the Johnson & Johnson to be fully vaccinated. Also, I went to sign my offer letter, and it was a significant difference in pay than I was originally told. And the person's position that I was supposed to be taking over, that also changed.
So in other words, you were told more than what you got.
Absolutely. It was a gross understatement. And even from the HR of that, in the city council department, I feel like I was bullied from day one. Literally from day one, I said, "Oh, wait a minute, this is not the rate of pay that I was told that I would get." And she said, "Let me tell you something. Sheng Thao is going to be the next mayor, and when she becomes the next mayor, you're going to get $40,000 more than this. You'll get $100,000+ when you move over to the mayor's office. So you better sign it and shut up. And if you tell anybody I said that, I'll tell them you're lying." That was my first day.
Jeez Louise. I mean,
I felt like I was inducted into the mob.
Were they treating you like that? When
I first got hired, I had folks asking me in the office, in Sheng Thao staff, how much did I make? Because something had happened where I guess she had gone over her budget or something to hire me, and people were not happy about that. As well as I wasn't the only new person. The person who chose to, put their word in and request that I am the person that's hired, since I would be supporting her role, she also changed, like did a 360. They asked about my rate of pay. I think those two, Renia and Brandon, were into it constantly, because Renia was a new person in the office. Brandon had the most experience, but Renia was appointed chief of staff because Sheng Thao said, I trust her blindly. And so she said Brandon had a bad, what do you call it? A track record of just like doing things, maybe on Twitter or whatever, that she had to clean up often. And so she went with Sheng Thao.
That continues. Interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't know Brandon prior to this, so I didn't follow anything that he had going on. And yeah, so anyway, that was a constant. I was in that. Brandon being upset about Renia being chief of staff, and the chief of staff not really knowing what to do, because she had only been there 6 or 7 months before I had gotten there, but she had gotten really close with Sheng, and so she was her right hand girl.
Did they ask you to work on the campaign or something like that? What was the
Uh,
breakage? You know,
well, yeah, I mean, it was pretty much they told me that on Wednesdays we work on the campaign. This is from day one. On Wednesdays is dedicated to campaign stuff, and so that's what everybody's doing. And she wanted everybody on her team to manage the folks who were actually also working on her campaign. She had them as leaders, but she wanted her staff to manage those managers.
So let me get this straight. There was no what we would call firewall between her council staff and her campaign staff. They were the same.
There were other people on the campaign staff. She had a different campaign manager, but from day one, I was told to download Signal. I was told to create a new email address and not to use the Microsoft Office that is provided. So I had to create another email address. And everybody was like this. They were training me. I wasn't allowed to talk to other council members. I was alone a lot. I was told to come into the office. I really felt like the face of the office. I was there every day. She gave me her parking pass to park in the front of the city hall because I would be the person who was showing up there every day, responsible for answering phones and answering emails. And so, I was pretty much like the actual person that was in the office. Renia would pop in maybe for an hour or two from time to time, but I was not being trained. Yeah, so it just, in hindsight, I didn't know exactly how it was affecting me, but now that it's behind me, like, they were killing me mentally.
Was it hours or was it just the confusion between? Because it sounds like they were saying to you, okay, you're both in office, but you're also on campaign.
Well, the thing is, I was told in the beginning. I was told in the beginning that if I worked on the campaign, there was an opportunity for me to earn extra money. So if I was interested in working on the campaign, then that was a whole separate side, and I would be paid for that. Our first Wednesday, because I didn't know how any of this worked. Our first Wednesday, she says, "Well, I don't have any money to pay anybody." So that was just completely opposite of what everything. It was like I was talking to two people, but it was one person. She was one person on this side of her face and another person on this side. And you don't know who you're talking to. Yeah. I
Two-faced.
feel like they just like lured me in and they were just gonna bully me into doing things their way because they knew know I didn't know anything. I was brand new.
But they didn't understand too that